I am a 43-year-old woman who has just experienced sex for the first time in my life. Now I face the daunting task of telling my 44-year-old husband that I want to end our marriage. This is our story. For as long as I can remember, I've struggled with what my church refers to as same-sex attraction. It has been a constant, silent battle that followed me throughout my life. My husband and I have been best friends for 30 years and married for 25. He is a wonderful person, funny, kind, and endlessly supportive. His nature has always been selfless, and he's a man who truly embodies goodness. He has felt asexual for as long as he can remember, and our relationship, though unconventional, was full of love and mutual respect. It was a marriage built on a deep friendship that felt warm and secure, albeit celibate. For years, this arrangement worked for both of us. It felt fulfilling in its own way. However, this past weekend, something happened that I never expected. I attended my 25th high school reunion, which was held 4 hours away from where we live. I stayed at the house of my old high school best friend Eve. The plan was simple, a few days catching up and reliving memories from our teenage years. What happened next was something neither of us could have anticipated. During the visit, we shared moments of laughter, nostalgia, and deep conversation. One thing led to another, and we found ourselves in an intimate situation. We made love several times, and for the first time in my life, I experienced an orgasm. I felt alive, wanted, and true to myself in a way that I had never felt before. It was as though I was shedding years of self-deception. The experience awakened something in me that had been dormant for far too long. I felt authentic and real, but at the same time, I was overwhelmed by the realization of what this meant for my marriage and my life moving forward. Neither Eve nor I planned for this. We were caught by surprise, and I am still processing it all. But now, I am faced with the undeniable truth that I need to start living a life that aligns with who I truly am. I am prepared to lose friends, to distance myself from family members, and even to be unwelcome in my church, if it comes to that. But the hardest part, the part that keeps me awake at night, is facing my husband, my best friend, the person who knows me better than anyone else, and who has stood by my side through everything. For the past 2 days, I have barely slept. The guilt, the anxiety, and the emotional upheaval have been almost too much to bear. My husband has noticed. Of course, he always notices when something is troubling me. Last night, he confronted me in the gentlest way possible. He told me that he knew something was weighing on my heart and that he had a feeling he knew what it was. He reassured me that we would talk about it tonight, and then he held me close for what felt like an eternity. Our marriage, in many ways, was a response to the overwhelming social and religious pressures we faced. The stigma in our faith surrounding singleness, being child-free, and same-sex attraction loomed large over both of us. Neither of us was fully self-aware when we first got married. We couldn't see that it was these societal pressures that pushed us into a union that, while loving, was not built on romantic or sexual desire. Over the years, we became comfortable with our reality, acknowledging it to each other in a way that only we could understand. We even joked about our cover story for others, with one of the main ones being that I was infertile, a convenient explanation for why we never had children. My faith was a complex part of my life. From the time I was a teenager, I prayed every day for God to take away my attraction to women, and every time that didn't happen, I would pray for forgiveness for the anger I felt toward God. My husband, always my confidant, knew about this struggle long before we were married. He would pray with me, but unlike me, he would always pray for my heart to be at peace rather than for me to change. This act of kindness and understanding has always meant the world to me, and I made sure he knew that. But over the last several years, our relationship with faith has changed. Our prayers became less frequent, and our church attendance felt more like a ritual we performed out of habit than genuine belief. I would sit in the pews, glancing around and wondering how many others were there simply for the sake of being seen, for maintaining appearances. No, my husband isn't gay. He is simply a kind, gentle man who is almost entirely asexual, and to a large extent, aromantic. In recent years, he had brought up the idea that perhaps I should explore relationships with other women to find happiness. But each time I would shut down the conversation, unwilling to confront what that would mean for us, for our life together. Now everything is out in the open, at least in my own heart. I know what I need to do. but the thought of hurting the person who has been my closest companion for 3 decades is agonizing. This isn't just about losing a husband. It's about redefining the most important relationship of my life as we prepare for the conversation that will change everything. I am filled with gratitude for him, sorrow for what is to come, and hope that by being honest, we can both find a path forward that allows us to live our truth. Tonight we will talk, and whatever comes next, I know that we will face it with the same honesty and compassion that has always defined our relationship. Second story, I'm a 32-year-old man who just discovered something that has left me spiraling. My wife of 2 years, Suzanne, who's 33, admitted that during the 6 months we were dating, before we became exclusive, she was hooking up with her friend, Josh, a 40-year-old man, and now here I am, stuck on a group vacation with him. I'm sitting in my room in a ski chalet, a little drunk, feeling like my entire world has been turned upside down, while the rest of our friends are out enjoying the village. Suzanne and I met online 4 years ago, both ready for something serious, after failed past relationships. Early on, she told me she wanted to wait before getting physical, because she was tired of guys disappearing. After that point, I thought it was a wise choice. I'd had a similar experience in a past relationship, where waiting helped build a solid emotional connection, so I appreciated her perspective. She also mentioned that she didn't expect exclusivity until we had explicitly agreed on it, and said I could date others during that waiting period, but I wasn't interested in seeing anyone, else I wanted to give my full attention to making it work with her. Until last night, I believe Suzanne had felt the same way. She never hinted at seeing anyone else, and her talk about building an emotional connection led me to assume she was focused solely on me. That assumption turned out to be foolish. We're on this trip with 3 other couples and Josh. Over the years, I've come to like Josh quite a bit. We've shared long talks over drinks and bonded over our work in tech. He always struck me as a kind, genuine guy who supported his friends. He was an advocate for therapy and often talked about his own self-improvement journey. Last night, after a long day of skiing, everyone was exhausted. I went downstairs to help a couple of friends prep dinner while Suzanne went to shower. About 30 minutes later, I decided to bring Suzanne a glass of wine. When I got to our room, I found her talking to Josh, while she stood there in a towel, one leg up on the bed, as she applied lotion. It wasn't an overtly compromising situation, but it struck me as strangely intimate. She greeted me casually, took the wine, and kept talking to Josh, like nothing was out of the ordinary. Josh nodded at me, said he was going to take his turn in the shower, and left the room. Now, I wish I'd kept my mouth shut, but instead I said something about how surprising it was to see her. So at ease in just a towel with Josh there, Suzanne explained that she hadn't even noticed because she was caught up in their conversation. That response didn't sit well with me. Suzanne has always been self-conscious about being seen. Even her swimsuits cover more than most because she doesn't like feeling exposed. The back of my brain started buzzing with doubt. I made an offhand comment about how she was usually quick to cover up, and she snapped back, "I guess I just know Josh so well that it didn't register." Her tone was sharp, defensive. I joked, "Did I hit a nerve?" And she replied, "Let's just go eat," with a strained smile. But I couldn't let it go. The tension in the room made me feel nauseous. I told her I could tell something was wrong and pressed her until she finally said, "You need to trust me. There's nothing going on with Josh." That only made things worse. I hadn't accused her of anything, but now I felt sick with suspicion. I blurted out, "If there's nothing, then tell me what's up, or I'm going to ask Josh myself." What followed was the most excruciating hour of my life. Suzanne admitted that she and Josh had a history. When I asked for context, she said it was none of my business, but I insisted. She eventually confessed that Josh was someone she trusted and occasionally slept with when she was single. My heart sank when I asked her when the last time was, and after dodging my question, she finally admitted it was during the 6 months we were dating before we had sex. I yelled a lot. I can't remember half of what I said, but I know it wasn't good. The entire time, Suzanne just looked annoyed, almost disgusted. It took ages to piece everything together. 10 years ago, her friend Rose, who's also on this trip, had started hooking up with Josh after a string of bad relationships. Rose used that arrangement to avoid sex in her dating life so she could see if guys were serious. It worked for her, and she married Eric, one of the guys in our group. 2 other friends tried the same thing with Josh, and it worked for them too. Suzanne admitted that she had asked Josh to do the same for her. He would give her advice on the guys she was dating, advice that apparently included me. I was floored. I asked, "So you'd go out with me, I'd drop you off, and then you'd go have sex with Josh and talk about us?" She called my question crass, but confirmed he was supportive and helped her stay focused on building a deeper connection with me. I spent the night on the hide-a-bed, claiming I was sick and skipping skiing the next day. I've been holed up here sipping Macallan 12 and writing this, trying to process everything. I feel sadness, betrayal, jealousy, and a deep sense of inferiority. I want to get out of here, but we're in Canada, far from any easy way home. Do I try to work through this? Do I leave? Am I justified in feeling this angry? The more I drink, the more I start seeing things from Suzanne's point of view, but the betrayal still stings. To add more context, Rose is the only other woman on this trip who has had this kind of relationship with Josh. The other couples were my friends first and don't know him well. Leaving now would be a logistical nightmare. We're deep in the mountains and the group drove here together. I don't suspect anything ongoing between Suzanne and Josh. They were completely casual when I walked in on them, and neither has ever shown any signs of flirtation. But I also never imagined Suzanne could compartmentalize her feelings like this. I'm going to try to ski later today and talk to my friend Ryan for advice. I'm done with drinking for the rest of this trip, as many have suggested. Update after reading some advice and reflecting, I've decided to stay for the rest of the trip. I need this time for myself. Suzanne has asked to talk, but I told her I'm not ready. Josh has kept his distance, probably because Suzanne warned him. I keep asking myself, if I'd known about Josh back then, would I have done anything differently? Would I have committed so wholly to someone who was casually seeing another man? I doubt it. I've spent some time going through old messages and memories from those first few months. What once felt magical now feels hollow. Before we leave, I might talk to Eric, Rose's husband, to get his perspective. Until then, I'm going to ski and try to clear my head. Third story I'm glad to hear. That counseling helped you both, and that your husband has come to terms with keeping the pregnancy. Your situation is incredibly complex and emotional, so it's understandable that both of you would have differing and evolving feelings about it. The fact that you both engaged in open dialogue and sought professional guidance shows that you're committed to facing challenges together, which is a strong foundation for whatever lies ahead. It's also normal to feel worried about how you'll handle the increased workload and stress with 2 children. Preparing ahead, building a strong support network, and staying open to the possibility of seeking help as needed will be key to navigating this new phase. Remember that it's okay to feel overwhelmed, and reaching out for help is always a strength, not a weakness. Your courage and commitment to your family's well-being are admirable. Wishing you all the best as you move forward and prepare for the arrival of your new addition. Take things one step at a time and trust in your ability to adapt as a family. Fourth story, my 35M wife, 32F, cheated on me 2 years ago, and I forgave her after she signed a post-nup. But now I've found out she didn't give me the full story and am strongly considering divorce again, with the benefit of the prenup. How can I learn to trust her again? My wife, Ella, 32, and I, 35, have been together for 7 years, married for 5. 2 years ago, she admitted to cheating on me with a coworker. I had always believed that cheating was a red line for me, and I was initially determined to divorce her. However, she did the work to regain my trust, or so I believed at the time. I also factored in the following, which allowed me to eventually move past it and forgive her. She confessed to me voluntarily. She wasn't found out and forced to tell me. It was one time at a housewarming party with the coworker. I remember that night, she didn't return home until 4 a.m., and I sent her several texts checking in to see if she was okay and if she needed me to pick her up. She normally doesn't like to drink, but occasionally succumbs to peer pressure, so I was worried she might have been too drunk to drive. She quit her job after confessing to me. This was her own choice to prove that she was prepared to hold herself to better boundaries. I actually discouraged her at the time because I was set on divorcing her, and was concerned that her lack of a job would mean I would need to pay higher alimony if she was unemployed. When I was 19 years old, I also cheated on my then girlfriend, not Ella, via a drunken kiss. Obviously, it wasn't as bad as what Ella did, which was full-on intercourse, but part of me felt like a hypocrite for not being able to forgive Ella because my college girlfriend had forgiven me. Given the above and the fact that Ella genuinely seemed remorseful, everything else in our relationship was great, and she was the most compatible person I had ever dated personality-wise. I decided to forgive Ella and not divorce her on the condition that she signed a post-nup. She enthusiastically agreed. The post-nup isn't overly harsh, in my opinion, aside from affirming that our premarital assets won't go into the settlement in the event of a divorce. It also included an infidelity clause with the penalty of the cheater forfeiting our jointly owned home, the car, and alimony in the event of a divorce. The balance would also be split 60-40 in favor of the cheated spouse rather than 50-50. We both had independent legal advice when this was drafted and signed. Fast forward to last month, when I was contacted on Facebook by Alice, the wife of my wife's affair partner. She had tracked me down by going through Ella's social media. She told me that she had caught her husband, Bill, cheating on her and discovered their affair from 2 years ago after going through his electronic devices. She asked if I knew, to which I replied that I did, but I thanked her for telling me anyway. She asked what had happened between Ella and me, and I told her that we had reconciled. She said she was determined to divorce Bill because, unlike my wife, Bill had proven to be a serial cheater and never confessed to her. The part that has since changed my mind about forgiving Ella is the fact that she revealed that Bill and Ella had actually been having an affair for 5 months. I clarified if she meant an emotional affair, but she clarified that it was a physical affair and that they had hooked up over 10 times. In my mind, this makes the affair so much worse. It wasn't just a drunken night. It was a long period of planned and deliberate choices, and I feel like an absolute fool. This past weekend, I confronted Ella and she admitted it. I asked why she didn't tell me the full truth, and she said she didn't believe I would have forgiven her if I had known. She's been trying to convince me that it's in the past. We've made 2 years of progress since, and it doesn't matter whether it was once or 10 times, she argues, that her confession showed true remorse. But my current thought is that the omission shows that even in her confession, her main concern was protecting herself rather than respecting me as a spouse by giving me the agency to make a fully informed choice, not that different from never telling me in the first place. I am now strongly considering divorce again and relying on the prenup for a more favorable divorce settlement. She wants us to go back to couples therapy, but how would that even work now that I trust her, even less than I did 2 years ago?